wanted to start with a little bit of background about myself. And if you guys have questions during or at the end, I just wanted to let you know kind of my field of expertise and where I've come from. So I've worked a fair bit in the new incursion space, so looking at unusual animals that pop up in New South Wales, mainly around reddy-sided turtles and corn snakes, but we've also deal with a lot of other animals. So we've had geckos, boa constrictors, etc. So all the unusual species that turn up and are reported. I've done a fair bit of work on the rabbit calicivirus project. So in 2017, we released a new strain of an existing biocontrol method for rabbits. And I did a lot of community work with groups right across Australia to help get them set up with prepping for the virus release, but also a lot of education around rabbit management and how the viruses work and interact. I've done a bit of community work with wild dog genetics. So we look at wild dogs from across Australia, but mainly focusing on New South Wales and bordering states and territories, and looking at percentage of dingo purity and also relatedness, so how far are dogs travelling as a management aspect or conservation aspect. And a fair bit of work with these little guys as well, so cane toads, that we quite often get reports in and around Sydney because we have a lot of transport companies or people just moving around Queensland and New South Wales in general. So sometimes these guys hitch a ride and you might see them out and about. But today I'm here to talk about the FeralScan resource. So it's a community-based surveillance tool, and it's been designed by community members and community groups to help you guys in monitoring and managing pest animals, and also reporting pest animals as well. So my name's Emma and I work with Peter West, who's my colleague, and the project's been running for about 8 years, or 10 years rather. It falls under the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries, but also nationally under the Centre for Invasive Species, and is funded by a few other organisations, so Australian Wool Innovation and Local Land Services, etc. So I just have a few poll questions to start with, just to kind of get an idea if you guys have heard of FeralScan, if you've ever used it before. So the first one is, have you ever used FeralScan? The second one is, have you used the website or the app? It's okay if you don't know the difference between the two just yet, but because I'll talk about that in the presentation. And also, what pest animals have you seen in your local area? So we'll just give everyone another 30 seconds or so. You can see those answers coming in. I've had some people use the resource before. And a couple more seconds. We might have a look at that poll now if everyone is happy with that. I'll just click on share results. Okay, so hopefully you can see those results there. Rhiannon, help me if you can't. So we've got, we've got one person who has used the resource and quite a few who haven't. That's okay. quite a few that use the website and both. Not so many with the app. That's interesting. Cane toads and others, if you do need to get in contact with someone from biosecurity about those animals, feel free to contact me after the presentation, but hopefully you'll get some interesting conversation or knowledge out of this presentation as well. So I'll just close this poll now. Thanks everyone for voting. Okay, so what is FeralScan? This is just a broad overview. It's a free community resource and it's been designed by landholders. So what Pete did at the start was to head out with his piece of paper and say, what do you guys need? What type of tool is going to help you in managing pest animals? And so FeralScan was born from that. It's a tool to help people monitor pest animals in the local area. So where are they seeing pest animals? Where are they hearing pest animals? Where are pest animals concentrated? From that information, it helps people plan out control activities. So what time of the year are pest animals most frequently there? Where are they moving? Where are they concentrated? And where should you be undertaking control activities? And it is also used as a recording tool. So like I mentioned before, there's some new pest species here in the area, such as cane toads or perhaps slider turtles. And FeralScan's a way of easily recording the things that you're seeing in the environment and sending all the essential information through to biosecurity teams. So at least they know about that animal in that area. I mentioned before that the website is different to the app. So I'll talk a little more in depth about both of them soon. But basically, there's a website which has a big database that sits behind it, and that holds all of the records, all of the information, all of the accounts. And you can record information through the website, but it's also really useful for that planning and going back through and having a look at where you put a record, for example. I'll show you some examples of that later. There's also the app, and if you've got time, feel free to download the app on your phone now if you like. It's free, and you can just download it through the App Store by typing in FeralScan. It's available on Android and Apple. And because we've developed this with landholders and community groups just like yourselves, it's pretty easy to use. So most of it's pretty self-explanatory, but I will show you a few slides on how to use both the website and the app. So this is just showing types of continuous community consultation that we have. So we're continuously getting feedback from groups. We go out to meet groups and do training like this, and we ask them if the resource is working for them and what else they might need to improve the resource so that it's more functional. So we're really working close with people and helping to develop something that's of use for you guys. Who can use FeralScan? There's a lot of different community groups and individuals that can use FeralScan. So residents in any area, any region across Australia. We have a lot of farmers and landholder groups. So local government groups, land care, bush care, local land services, and professional pest controllers. So those groups quite often work together or work alongside community groups using FeralScan as a way to communicate what's happening in the area in terms of pest animals, but also to plan and communicate with professionals such as pest controllers for where control's been undertaken and when control's been undertaken. There's a couple of different types of information that can go into FeralScan, and they can be categorised in 3 broad ways. The first one is sightings or evidence of pests, and particularly important is photographs, and I'll cover that a little bit more in depth. The next is damage or impacts. So, for example, collision with motor vehicles, perhaps foxes are causing damage to native wildlife, or rabbits are causing damage to vegetation. And then control activities. So where's the control being undertaken? This information goes onto the FeralScan map, but it's not always visible because some of it's very sensitive. So such as control activities, only particular login details will be able to see that information. We don't just freely give this information out to everyone. You also have the choice of putting the information in as public or private. So there's a question in the form that'll say, do you want everyone to see it, or do you just want to keep that to yourself? I'll show you an example shortly. So I have some slides on how to use the website. So remembering that the website's a little bit different to the phone app. So here, as you can see, we've got the home screen of the website, and we can see all the different species that you can record through FeralScan. The example that I'll give will be on foxes. This is the home page to the FeralScan website, and we've got a home page for each of the different species, and they contain slightly different information depending on that species. The top right-hand side, we see the picture of Australia. That's the button that you use to record information of that species. Underneath it, there's the login, log out button. So if you want to save your records and have a look at them later, we recommend that you create an account, or we can create one for you, and you can log in and record information. There's some links to downloading the app on each of the species home pages. And down the bottom in that yellow box are some instructions on how to use the website and how to use the phone app, depending on what you need a little bit more information on. Once you click on the picture of Australia, this map opens up with the form on the left-hand side. So what you would do next is click on the map to drop a marker pin where you saw the sighting or where you're undertaking control. Then you fill in the form. You can add photos here if you like to. And then you can submit your record. And once you've submitted your record, it looks like this. So it'll have a little marker on the map. In the case of foxes along the Parramatta River, this is just a little snapshot of where some foxes have been seen in this region. So now I'm going to show you what it looks like to use the phone app. And you're welcome to open up your phone app now if you like and click through the various different stages. If you get stuck with anything, just make a note on the side or pop a question in the chat box. If it's something that I can't cover at the end of the session, perhaps you've forgotten your login details, for example, then I'm more than happy to follow up with you after. So just make sure you make a note there and I'll be in contact. So to download FeralScan, you're looking for that little logo there when you go to your app store. And then you'd hit download or update if you've already got that installed on your device. When you open the app, it'll have this home screen with all of the pest species that you can record in FeralScan. You click on the species that you'd like to record. So for example, here we click on foxes. The next one is selecting the type of information. So again, did you see something? Was something damaged? Or are you undertaking a control activity? So selecting which type of information. Next, you fill in the form and then you hit submit. So the phone app's really good because you can record all of the information exactly where you've seen the sighting or where the record was. And your phone uses the internal GPS to record the exact location. It also records the date and time. And if you've logged in, it'll also save all of your information as well. So it's pretty handy. It records most of the information for you. Down the bottom in that little yellow box is the button which will say display this record to all users or keep the record as private. So again, this is your choice. You don't have to display your records publicly. You can keep them private, which means only you, your group, if you're part of a group working together to manage pest animals, and biosecurity officers will be able to see that information. So that's not freely given out. It works without mobile reception. So if you've decided to skip Sydney and travel around New South Wales, because let's face it, we can't travel to very many other places these days. You might be in a rural or remote area of New South Wales, and perhaps there's been a cane-toed hitchhiker ride on a truck or a caravan. You can pull out your phone, take a picture, record that you've seen a sighting of a cane-toed, submit. Your phone records that information in the save folder, and when you come back into mobile reception, all you need to do is hit upload, and all of that's sent through to biosecurity officers. So it's pretty flexible in its use here, and particularly important for people in our western regions where coverage is a little bit not as full sometimes, but certainly important for you guys to know as well. So we're just going to come to another poll question, which is, have you guys seen any of these animals here? Which I think is quite similar to our first one, but it'll be interesting to nail down on these 3 species. So they don't commonly occur in Sydney, but I'm just curious if you've seen anything similar to this in the Sydney region, or if you've heard anything similar, so for that matter. So I've got 1 cane toad at the moment, 2 cane toads. There's definitely quite a few of the top left animal. Just give that a couple more seconds. So the top left is a red-eared slider turtle, and the bottom left is a corn snake. And both of these species originate from America, and they're quite popular pets. In the 50s, the red-eared slider turtle was a really popular pet. And it's also popular in Asian cultures as well. So they have quite a spiritual belief around this animal and its release. But sometimes people own these pets without knowing that they're not native and the type of damage that they can do to our native habitats. So sometimes we do come across these, unfortunately, in the open environment. So I'll just finish that poll and share the results. So I've had 2 cane toads and no one's seen a red-eared slider turtle or a corn snake. I wanted to cover off on some ID for both of these species as well, because it's really important that we keep an eye out for anything that looks unusual, and that we're communicating that, because it's much easier to manage species when they're low numbers than what it is to try and manage them when they become really established and affect our native habitats. Click on this screen. Okay, so for red-eared slider turtles and corn snakes, we've just released a new platform in FeralScan. This was only released in the last couple of months. And again, it's quite easy to report both of these species. Even if you're not quite sure if it is a slider turtle or a corn snake, just report it, because we work with a team of people who are quite good at identifying these species as well. So here we've got the new pest reporting tool. when you open it on your phone, the screen looks like this. So you click Report Sighting. It opens up a map on the left-hand side. You hit Record Data, and then that opens up the web form, so what you see on the right-hand side. So what you do is place your finger on the map to drop a pin, fill in the form, and then hit Submit. And that information will be sent through to local biosecurity officers, and quite often local groups within the area, so bush care, land care, local government, because we try and get people to work together if we are following up on pest animals. I just wanted to make a point here as well. Pest animal management is quite often done at a broad scale and with very thorough planning when managing pests. So the more information that's put in about known locations of pest animals, the better the planning activities for a long-term management strategy, rather than just heading out every day or every time someone sees something. So we really try and manage pests over a long period of time, and with a great deal of thought and planning. So this map's continuously being updated as well. There's other avenues for reporting non-native animals. So we try and include as much information on the FeralScan map about where people have previously seen sightings of reddy slider turtles and corn snakes. And we make these sightings available to members of the general public. So you can jump on and you can see the general area where animals have been sighted, so that you know, and you can keep a lookout for any more sightings in that local area or in areas that they currently aren't present. So again, that's those two species there. At the start, I mentioned that I'd done a fair bit of work with reddy slider turtles. So this is a member of local government from Fairfield and a pest controller. And we had quite a few reports of reddy slider turtles in this local water body, and over quite a few years, and working with local government and pest controllers, we were able to put together a funding package, also in collaboration with DPI, and learn more about species in that area and what the best method of trapping or trying to manage them would be. Looking at aspects like how to contain them, they're trying to learn information about breeding patterns, etc. Because there are a number of locations where this reddy slider turtles have been sighted across Sydney, and definitely some locations where breeding is occurring. So it's important that we know as much information as we can, which comes from the assistance from people like you. So if you're seeing anything, please report it using the FeralScan app. Of course, there's other ways of reporting. So with FeralScan at the moment, we only have a platform for corn snakes and reddy slider turtles in terms of new pest animals, but there's always a DPI reporting hotline for all other species. Let's hope we don't see many American alligators or any of the other animals for that matter. But there's a hotline here. Also, when you head to the new pest reporting form, if it's a different species, you can access the link to reporting other animals by clicking on the link in the form highlighted in the yellow box. Okay, so cane toads, we have quite a few reports of cane toads across New South Wales, and a lot of them are misidentified toads. So a lot of them come through as native frogs. Got a couple of examples here. So these are eastern native frogs. But I just wanted to highlight some points on identifying cane toads. So These are the key characteristics that we really look for when identifying toads. So the bony ridge right along the top of the eye, and it comes down the nose. Adults are quite large, and they have really dry looking skin. They've got these big glands on either side of the head. Sometimes you'll see like a white creamy substance coming out of the glands. Underneath is generally a creamy colour, but it can be mottled, so it can have like a grey or brown patterning underneath it as well. They've got little webbing between their toes, and they haven't got any pads on the end of their feet. So another key feature is if we have a picture of something on a vertical wall, it's quite often a native frog, not a cane toad, because they don't climb vertical surfaces. And again, slightly marbled underneath. I've just got a soundbite for a cane toad here. I'm hoping that you guys can hear this. Rhiannon, please let me know if this doesn't come through, but I'll play this now. Beautiful. You can hear that quite distinctive call. Take a mental snapshot. I'll just stop that there. So yeah, it's quite distinctive and very different to a lot of native frog calls. You can also record sound bites like this and use that as additional evidence if when reporting. So we accept photos and sound bites, and also knowing the location too often helps when following up. Okay, so next I've got a little video just to break it up a bit, and this shows some steps on how to care for a potential cane toad. If we're finding an animal alive, we do ask if it's safe to do so, to contain the animal so that we can identify it and then handle that animal most appropriately. So here's some steps, and it also shows the use of the FeralScan app as well. Excellent, I've just gone past the page. Just give me a second. And play. All right. So in that video, We had Ian wearing gloves, which is a point of safety, and making sure that you wash your hands after. And also taking multiple photos will help with identification. So if you're reporting with one photo in your form and you've captured the animal and we're not too sure what it is, you may be requested to submit some more photos or a video or a sound bite to help in the identification, so that we can help you in the following stages. So now I just wanted to head over for a little website demonstration, and I'm going to show you guys how to record a deer sighting. We do have some deer around the peri-urban areas of Sydney, and certainly up in the Blue Mountains. And then I'll show you a couple more resources on cane toads and reddy slider turtles, including some really nifty online 3D models. So firstly, this is the FeralScan website. So I'm going to head over to DeerScan here. And we've got quite a few resources and things up the top. So I encourage you to have a look through the menu items. We've got what DeerScan provides, how to use the app. I'll click on this to show you. So we've got some step-by-step instructions on how to use the app for DeerScan and for every other species for that matter. But we've also got this PDF link here. So when you click on the PDF, you can download this and print this, and you can take this with you, or you can provide this to other people if someone else needs help in using the resource. We've also got some species identification. So there's quite a few deer species in Australia, and you can have a look at features of those deer species. So to record a deer sighting, I will click on record deer or record, click on the map. I'll just log out for a second. Firstly, there's this register button too. Let's have a look at that first. So here you can create a new account by filling in your details, agreeing to the terms and conditions, and hitting submit. Just make sure you write down in a safe place what your details are. If you forget what they are, it's fine. Just let Peter or I know and we can look that up for you and provide those details or reset your account. So I'm going to click on record deer. So up the top left-hand side is the record data button. So I'm going to click on that button. And let's pretend that we've seen a sighting of a deer along the Parramatta River. It's not too far-fetched, actually. I'm going to zoom in here. So I can use my mouse or I can click the plus sign. Sorry, it's usually a bit glitchy with this zoom feature. I'll just wait for that to load. So on the left-hand side here, we can see the features of the reporting form. So let's zoom down on the upper Parramatta River and we'll just click our location here. You can move the deer by clicking and holding and dragging that marker to a new location. So that's updated the latitude and the longitude. You don't need to type it unless for some other reason you have that written down. It's already input the date field, but if you're reporting this a week or two later, that's also fine. You can change the date. You record the deer species. How many did you see? That you observed them, or maybe you heard them calling, or maybe you've got wildlife cameras out and you happen to detect a deer on them. They were adults, not sure what species. You can add some notes in this field here. Always a good idea to add your email address, even if you don't have an account yet, because if you decide to create an account in the future, then we can pull all of your records together and have that information in one spot. You can upload photos here from your computer, and then you would hit submit, and that record would go onto the map, And for the Sydney region, that email would alert local land services, and then they would therefore alert other groups in the area. So that might include the local government, depending on the species and the record type. It might also include you guys. So if someone's seen a cane toad in the area, for example, we might let Bush Care know and say, hey, we've had a report. If you guys are out and about, can you just keep an eye out for it, so we can try and get on top of things quite early. So next up, I wanted to show you a couple of the resources in the cane toad site, again, just around identification between toads and native species, because as I mentioned, there's a lot of reports that come in of native frogs. Unfortunately, people misidentify them and put them in the freezer, which is not the best practice for humanely euthanizing. But also too, if they've got a native frog, sometimes it means that we don't get to that report soon enough, like within the hour, and that result is not optimal. So on the website here, you can find that little video that we just watched again on the homepage. And perhaps that might be good, Rhiannon, might be a good one to share on your Facebook site as well. There's instructions on how to use FeralScan again, down a bit further, information about the biosecurity zone if you're really interested, and how to contact us. But most importantly, at the top here, under the resources tab, is how to identify a cane toad. So I'm going to click on that. We've got a link to their call up the top. We have that same graphic showing the different features, but this thing here is pretty cool. So this was developed by some students at Newcastle Uni, and they do a lot of computer IT and graphic design. And the Incursions team went to them and said, we think we want something that's a little bit more interactive for educational purposes, that also shows the features of some of our invasive species, and this is one of them. So you can drag and move that animal around, and you can also click on the different features, which is what we had in that static graphic. And you can also zoom in. So I just double click there, but you can use your mouse to zoom right in. So just something a bit novel and different for identifying species. And finally, I'll head over to the incursions page. So down the bottom, new pests, the turtle. We've got the report sighting buttons here. We've also got the map up on the right. We've got some pages we put together on both species. So this is identification for red-eared slider turtles, and it contains a lot of information and facts about the species, size, appearance, very image rich. You can see more photos of the species if you would like to have a look at that. We've got a similar 3D graphic on slider turtles here as well. I'll let you guys have a look at that in your own time. We've also got some native species which look quite similar. In particular, the Murray River turtle, very similar size, very similar colorations. And the mark down the side of the face, looking at this animal from a distance, can sometimes be mistaken for a slider turtle. Slider turtles have this distinctive red mark up the side of their head, and sometimes that red mark can fade with age, so it does become like a very pale red, orange, or into like a creamy yellow, and that's why that species is sometimes mixed up with a native species. But there's still some key characteristics, and if you're seeing something in local wetlands or parks, just let us know. It's much easier to take a picture and let us know, and we can get someone out there to have a look and monitor that site. I'll just head back over to our presentation, and I'll finish off with a few things here. So make sure you've got some questions for me. Otherwise, feel free to email them through after. So taking good quality photos, really important important because we do work with the Australian National Museum and quite a few people that are specialists in this space and definitely specialists in taxonomy. So if we have something unusual come through, then we seek help off them. But it helps from you guys if we have clear photos, so fairly close to the animal if it's safe to do so, taking the lid off containers and in good lighting and not blurred. So here's some examples of unsuitable that we've had come through. It's very difficult to determine from these pictures if that's a native animal or not. So sufficient lighting, the animal's in focus, we can get as close as possible, multiple photos in case we need to get back in contact with you. And finally, how can we help you further? So as I mentioned, I live locally in Sydney and hopefully we can start doing some face-to-face sessions, but I'm more than happy visiting you guys if you need a little bit more help with the mobile app or if you want a bit more of a step through with the website. I'm happy taking phone calls for one-on-one consultations, or if there's a small group of you that want something a little bit more intensive on how to use the resource. I can help you create an account. I can help you with instructions, whether you want that printed or digital and online, just emailed. We've got heaps of resources online, so I can put you in the right direction for resources on both FeralScan and pest animals. I can help connect you with local groups. And yeah, as I mentioned, if you've got events, community events coming up, more than happy to come along and chat about FeralScan, but also about pest animals in general, because I work, as I mentioned, with the Vertebrate Pest Research Unit in Orange, and there's a lot of us across the state. So if there's a particular issue that you're interested in, we'll work really closely with local land services who are the experts for this region. But if they're unavailable for an event, then yeah, I'm happy to come along and spread some information and education about pest animals in the region. So here's our contact details finally. Please follow up with any questions or concerns that you might have, particularly if you've seen unusual animals from the area and you haven't yet reported them. Please use FeralScan to let us know, or yeah, get in contact directly and we can help you further. And thank you very much everyone for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you and working with you in the future. And thank you, Rhiannon, and your team for inviting me along.
No, thank you, Emma, for the very educational presentation. So we'll put up our last poll now. That's just got some feedback for us all, for Emma and us, for future presentations. So it'd be great if everyone could have a go at that one. Sorry about the first poll not working. We didn't realise that if you didn't put an answer, you couldn't submit it. So now we know for next time. So we're all learning. So Emma's contact details and Peter's contact details, we can share these with everyone that's registered if you like as well, and a copy of some of the handy resources that Emma's mentioned about some of these pest animal species.
Yeah, I will send through, I'll do up a bit of a letter after this, Rhiannon, if that's okay with you. And I'll pop in a few links to these resources again and instructions and our contact details again. So if you guys want to get in contact with either Peter or myself, or if you have any more questions, then it's easily accessible to you.
Yeah. So we haven't actually got any questions coming in. Anyone got any questions? Everyone's given us some great feedback, saying it was very helpful, great information, amazing app. So everyone's impressed with the app.
Lovely. If you do want to have a go at using the app, that's fine. You can put in a record. When you get to the notes field, please make sure that you write that it's a test, because it does go through to biosecurity officers. So we don't want to be putting in that you've seen 17 corn snakes in the Parramatta River if it's not a legit record. But that's fine if you want to pop that in and have a go. Just make sure you write test in there. so that we know to delete it and that it's not legitimate.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't have to hit submit either. You can just step through the different stages in the app and not hit submit. It will still give you a similar result. Yes. So I'm pleased that you guys have learned something from the presentation, just looking at that poll now. And I'm also pleased from the start hearing that perhaps some of you hadn't heard of FeralScan before, so now you've got plenty of information. And I really encourage you to just have a trial run, have a look at the app, get familiar with it, have a look at the website as well, and have a bit of a click through the menu items, because there's lots of resources on different animals in there.
Yeah, and have a practice, because a lot of you contact us about foxes. So it'd be great if you could put it into FeralScan as well when you see those, to have those sightings.
Yeah, and then always remembering, particularly for widespread pest animals, the best way to undertake management is with multiple groups across a large region, and that's quite often undertaken over a long period of time. So it helps having all of the records in one place, so that when groups in your local area decide, okay, now is the best time to undertake that management, then we've got all the information in one spot, because quite often it's a lot of wasted resources to go out and individually manage when one pest animal comes through. So please report what you're seeing, because that paints the bigger picture for pest animal management and conservation around the Sydney region.
Okay, all right, well, I think we've gotten most people's feedback, so thanks everyone for doing that.
Thank you, everyone.
Will you folks be advertising on council websites?
That's a really good question, and we can, I think it's kind of up to the each individual council for how they manage pest animal reports. I know that some councils are promoting FeralScan as a way of reporting at least widespread pest animals, and that's a conversation that the councils would really need to be engaging with them, because some do have their own protocol. It's unique for each situation.
That's a good question though, Liz.
It is a good one, yeah.
Yeah, I'll broach it with our natural resources to see if that's something that can be put on the website.
I'm just making a note too.
Great.
We had someone with a hand up. I might just stop sharing my screen too. Can I go end poll?
Yep.
And share results, so we can have a look here. So it's good to see that you've all learned something new. We learn something new every day. We've got quite a few people who enjoyed it. Relevant content, and you feel like you could have a go at using it. And we're still learning about pest animals. So great, thanks for coming to the presentation today. Because I hope that when you head back over to those websites, that you'll continue increasing your knowledge about pest animals. There's definitely some useful resources there. I'm just going to go stop screen sharing here.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we'll stop sharing results now. There's one last question. Yeah, feral cats can be reported. There's a whole, pretty much every feral animal that you can think of can be reported on FeralScan.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if anyone has any future questions, feel free to shoot them through to Emma or Peter. I'll provide you with their contact details, or us. Everyone has our Bush Care email. But apart from that, thank you, Emma, once again for the presentation this afternoon.
Thank you, Rhiannon.
As you can see, everyone learnt a lot, so that's great. That was the whole aim of tonight, so that's good. Yeah, and thank you everyone for coming along.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time, and have a lovely evening, and hopefully I'll talk to you in the future.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye, Emma.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.